And this was supposed to be a discussion. And during the discussion, we are not soliciting questions because I don't think that there are many answers to the questions. But we would like to have some views of some selected people because the time may not permit a very long one. But some of the people who would like to say their views about what do they think, and particularly what His Holiness has said and what has been your modest thing from Prabhatji about the book and its contents, and your general vision and perception about Tibet. May I start? Okay. Kick started. Yeah, sorry. Please.
My query is primarily for...
There are no queries actually. Your obligation.
Yeah, my views on Ambassador Shukla's introductions. If I may see the same timeline which you noted, in a slightly different perspective. In 1947 April, when we conducted this conference in Delhi, we had invited Tibet as an independent state because we had some kind of a consular relationship with Tibet. But in 1947, when India got independence, the only discordant, the message of goodwill that we received from all the countries in the world was from the Tibetan government, which wrote a letter stating that there are certain boundary issues which has to be sorted out between India and Tibet. Now, on the basis of that, there was some appreciation in Delhi, which you would know better than me because you dealt with the files in Delhi, that we have a very large number of sub-Himalayan Tibetans, ethnic Tibetans who are Indian citizens, who may possibly have a dual citizenship. And there was a better hope that a communist China may be able to recognize our frontiers. And therefore, even in 61, we did not support the resolution against China. It was only after the events of 62 that in 65 we realized that China is no longer a reliable friend and therefore had to go along with it. I have nothing else to say except to just put the timeline that you gave in a slightly different perspective.
I think thank you very much for bringing out some additional facts, Mr. Nath.
Well, sir, it is a privilege to comment on this subject after especially the address by His Holiness and the clarifications of the book given by Mr. Ambassador Shukla. My humble submission is that, as you all know, as you rightly said, Nehru's enigma, his policy, Sardar Patel had tooth and nail opposed, but he just didn't listen to Sardar Patel. As you rightly said, it's not understandable how he. But the essential point right now is, do we have a Tibet policy right now? Because whatever we are doing, it is in the context of China. Is India's China policy, I think, more appropriately called that we have not any specific Tibet policy, despite some efforts which you indicated. In a sense, it is a betrayal of the people of Tibet who are dependent on us so much. As regards the civilization integrity or closeness, it is not only Tibet. As a matter of fact, China itself, the recent scholar come diplomat, Hu Xin, one of the best known scholar diplomats, had also said this, recently said, China was overwhelmed and baffled and overjoyed. She begged and borrowed from this munificent giver, India. China's indebtedness to India can never be fully told. With this background of China, having had such close relation with us, now they have behaved in a manner which is, as rightly pointed by Ambassador Shukla, condemned by everyone. In this context, my submission is that as far as India is concerned, can you have a national debate on the subject which you have now originated virtually, and you have been doing it? Should we not have a national debate on our stand in respect of, should we say, China or Tibet? This, I think, will allow the country to with your sort of inspiration and support, will help the country also to develop a specific Tibet policy. Right now, we are in a mood to virtually surrender to the Chinese game. That I thought is totally uncalled for. Because after all, a civilization of Tibet, they have borrowed from us, no doubt about it. But now that they have the independent civilization, a civilization cannot be allowed to die. So that being the situation, a proper public opinion has to be built up to force the government to have an independent Tibet policy. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for this suggestion. I think it's a very welcome suggestion. Would you like to have some views?
Well, I had come principally to listen and learn, but reference your initial remark whether Tibetan question is still alive. The thing is that Tibetan question will be alive till eternity. Let me give you an example. In the year 1654, a team of some Ukrainians went to the Tsar and said that absorb us into Russia. But 300 years plus, Ukraine is a separate country. Tibet will always live as the Tibetans will live. I agree with Ambassador Shukla that not only a big mistake, but our behavior vis-a-vis Tibet and China in the late 40s and early 50s was shameful and has created a situation in which none of our other neighbors tended to believe, because they knew that how we had jettisoned a people and a friend of thousands of years. What can we do in future? Because one thing is there, I have not the slightest doubt that if not next decade, the year after, the next century, Tibet will be a free country once again, without any doubt whatsoever. In perspective of time, that will not be a question. What we have to do in the meantime is to provide a home for those Tibetans who are dedicated enough to fight for the eternal rights of their people. I am very glad that the book has been brought out and that we are going to undertake this campaign in a stretch of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you echo the thought of many people in this room. We're most grateful to you. Mr. Khanna.
Frankly, I was struck by the remarks of His Holiness the Karmapa when he said that we are the children of India. The mother has let them down very badly. We want to take Hyderabad. This is the first time that I am hearing that they want to take Hyderabad to the UN and all that. And we never took Tibet to the UN. But right now, sir, my major concern, which wrenches my heart, is the genocide. If you don't fly a flag of the Chinese on your home, you are persecuted. Monasteries are being destroyed. If the current civilization is going to survive, it's only because of the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma, which traveled to countries like Sri Lanka, Myanmar, our own Tibet. I have benefited a lot from the teaching that I've had from them in return, from the masters who went to them and taught them. I think we have to do something for that. I am sure that India is not going to raise her voice till we get a very strong leadership. But at least we as the citizen Now they want to go in, I think, the human rights council or something in the UN. We should raise our voice against that. Persecution of the people. Young friends putting themselves on fire and all that, one after another, one after another. We are not able to help at all. This is my major pain today.
I think, yes, the current situation is something that does require. Please, Mr. Babu.
I completely share the optimism of the Admiral when he says that in time to come, Tibet is going to become a free country, as it was earlier. My reason for saying so is that times have so changed all over the world that nobody can be suppressed. We can't suppress our children in our small family. How can people be suppressed continuously for a long time? And this is not only true for people of Tibet, it will also be true for people in Xinjiang and many other places where suppression is the order of the day to day, but in time to come, the natural desire to establish one's identity completely, fully, and that is the movement of the times. We are all moving for greater self-expression, whether in the political field or any other field. And I think this inevitable dynamism of times will result in Tibet becoming free. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babu. Okay, sorry. General Lee,
Thank you very much. I think enough has been said. There is no doubt in anybody's mind that free Tibet is required, and very much because of two reasons. Firstly, as far as the Tibetans are concerned, for them it is their motherland, and their freedom of Tibet is of utmost importance to them, and it is sacrosanct for them. As far as India is concerned, because of our relationship with the Tibetans, which are time long, and also because of the other security concerns in this area, it will be very desirable that Tibet becomes free at some point in time. Now, it is not necessary to wage a war to gain that. There are many other ways to achieve that. Unfortunately, I think that effort is lacking. And it will be a good initiative on the part of India to lead this particular struggle on behalf of the Tibetans. And of course, Tibetans will have to help themselves, which they are displaying that particular raw nerve by the kind of self-revelations which are taking place in that area. So I think sooner than later we should be headed in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Sikri.
Thank you. I just want to make a couple of points. One, I do believe that the Chinese are deeply worried by India's position on Tibet. We think it is benign, but from a Chinese perspective, I think they feel that in the long perspective that some other speakers have said, that India could do something that would encourage or promote the independence on Tibet, and that in fact they want to in India-China relations. It was always the biggest factor in the discussions that took place between Nehru and Zhou Enlai in the 50s, and I think it remains even today, even though discussions may not be taking place. The second point I want to make is that considering that India, as you have read, that we should be playing up to demolish the concept that the Chinese have that they are a superior civilization, the Middle Kingdom. I think we have to play a psychological game with them also and say, look, actually you're nothing but a derivative of the Indian civilization. The third thing, which I want to elaborate that a little more, is the concept of the water and environment and so forth. Tibet has to be projected as not just, of course, the homeland of the Tibetans and the ill treatment and the violation of human rights, but I think it has to be projected as the third pole, the repository of glaciers, snow, water, the water towers of Asia. And therefore, it has a global significance that goes beyond India. It is next only to, say, if the Antarctica or the Brazilian rainforests are important for humanity, Tibet is equally so. And China, simply because today, and or for the last 60, 70 years, has been controlling Tibet, does not give it the right to appropriate the resources of Tibet on which civilizations, cultures, and billions of people depend. I think this is an important factor we should also be highlighting.
The global government, I think I'm signing, and I think that's the last observation that we can have.
I think I have been very fortunate that I got the opportunity to visit Lhasa twice, I think in the last 7, 8 years. It's an amazing country, and it was absolutely a mind-boggling experience to go to this country as the God said, if you really ask me. What hurt one was the way the temples and the monasteries in the Patola Palace has been reduced from the holiest of the holy places to something which is a place of cheap tourism. Actually, the places which were worshipped, the place which was supposed to be the most sacred to the Tibetans, is swamped over by the tourists from mainland China and other places. And when you look at those majestic places, you feel moved. Because this is not the way this amazing country and amazing culture was supposed to have continued. So I do feel, and it was also very demoralizing to see that in this Lhasa, there are more Han Chinese than Tibetans. And the periphery of Patola Palace, where the religious Tibetans crawl almost, those shops, those places, the temples have been reduced to shops. The summer palace where the Dalai Lama used to go and retreat in the summers have been converted into an entertainment park. Now I do wish that once again these places are restored to their dignity, and I am absolutely sanguine that this will happen, and I think it is our duty, moral duty, to make sure that Tibet gets its rightful place and its people get their rightful rights to observe their rituals, their religion, which of course came from India, and of course they gave so much back to us. So I have an ardent wish this happens. Thank you.